In 1933, Fred Bear created a legacy, pursuing his lifelong passion. Fred's mission was to ensure archery remains accessible to everyone. Here at Bear Archery, we promise to never forget the principles our brands were founded on. From the youngest archer to the oldest, we strive to build bows that give you the best shooting experience. Visit beararchery.com to discover more.
Midway USA brand product designers have one straightforward goal: develop high-quality, technically sound products and deliver them to customers at reasonable prices. If you are immersed in the shooting sports industry and pay close attention to every single detail, you know our products are built right and stand up to everyday use. Who has shooting mats and range bag systems to hunting clothing and just about everything for the outdoors? Log on and shop 24/7 with super fast shipping. MidwayUSA.com.
Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of CastingAcross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. This is episode 140, which means that it is another Fly Fishing Accusations podcast. However, no one has accused me of anything recently, at least not to my face or to my email box. So instead, we'll deal with some questions and comments that have come from listeners and readers, and I always enjoy getting things. I've got some good ones this go around. A variety of topics. The first one comes from Jesse, and Jesse writes, "Hey Matthew, loved your wading boots video on YouTube. Thanks a lot. I can't make up my mind on what I should get between the Astral shoes or the Redington boots. I like the flex in the shoe, but my waders have a stocking foot, and I don't know if I'd be able to fit my foot comfortably in them. I like to ride my bike to go fish, and I'd like to have something that is light, but maybe would have enough room for the stocking. And I'm also living in Ontario, so I'd be fishing in the summer, but also in chilly weather. Any recommendations? Thanks for your time. Take care, Jesse." Jesse, you are not the only person to ask me that question. I think I got a couple of comments on the YouTube video as well as some other emails about this very question. So what Jesse is referring to is a YouTube video I did months ago, and all I was doing in it was breaking down 3 basic styles of wading boots. There are the heavy-duty wading boots, and this is kind of what most of us fished out of maybe 20 years ago. Very rigid, very stiff in the ankle and the shaft, a lot of ankle support, a lot of protection to your foot, and they're great for long days on the water because they actually add a lot of stability, but it kind of feels like you're walking in Frankenstein boots. Now, technology has come a long way, but there's still boots that are definitely very rigid, and I have a pair of Corker Dark Horse they're light, but generally speaking, compared to like my hiking boots and like my cowboy boots and things like that, they're heavy, but you're wading in them, so it's okay, but they have a lot of support, and they're great boots. And then there's kind of the mid-range option, and for those, I use the Redington Benchmark boots. These are an ultra-light boot. I mean, they weigh hardly anything, but they're still going to provide a lot of toe protection and some significant ankle support. Not to the same degree as a heavy-duty pair of boots, but the purpose of these is kind of an everyday wear boot, something that you can get in and out of quickly and that you're able to move around with a lot of ease. This is my kind of normal, like 4 out of 5 times out in the water wading boot, whether it be freshwater or saltwater. This is the kind of boot that I use. And then the third option is a wet wading shoe, which isn't actually even designed for fly fishing. It's designed for kayaking, and the particular one that I have is from Astral, and it's the Brewer. And right now you have the Brewer 2.0, which is out. I've got the original Brewer. Absolutely love it. It weighs absolutely nothing. You get no ankle protection. Only toe protection you get is that thin nylon. I mean, it's rugged. I've got little like nicks in mine, but from years and years of wet wading, nothing's torn or come undone in the stitching. But it's what I use when I'm wet wading in the summertime. So those 3 models were simply examples of a heavy-duty boot, kind of a ultralight boot, and then a wading shoe. And so Jesse's question is a good question, and a lot of people ask that. Now, I would say that the long and the short of it is I would not recommend a shoe, a wet wading shoe to be used also with your waders. Now, I do have experience with trying that a few years ago. One of the big brands, I think it was Orvis. I think that's who it was. I had a pair for a while. I was kind of given a test drive, and they came with a neoprene bootie that looked kind of like a crew sock that you put on first before you slid your foot into this wet wading shoe. And the idea there was, you had this sock that fit in this shoe perfectly, and it also offered some protection to your foot from gravel and things like that, as well as a little bit of like ankle protection. But then you could take that out and then wear those shoes on the bottom of your normal stocking foot waders. Well, here's the issue with that. First and foremost, the wader sock was like a 1 millimeter neoprene, very, very thin. So if you were going to put on normal neoprene booties, which usually are 3 millimeter, sometimes they're reinforced, they're even heavier than that. And then with a heavy sock underneath it, it didn't fit right. It didn't feel right. And then also, there was something bizarre about having on chest waders and having exposed ankles. There was my neoprene bootie was still there, but one, it felt weird, and two, I didn't like the idea if I was doing more rugged wading, if I were to take a spill and my ankle were to slide down in between two sharp rocks in the river, that I could potentially put a gash in the neoprene bootie of my stocking foot waders, and now it is a $350 repair. That's not the place in your waders you want to have a failure. You can repair the breathable fabric, like from your shins up, with relative ease, and it's going to last, but repairing neoprene is going to require some big, bulky glue jobs, and that's not the kind of thing that you're going to want to have up against your ankle or up against your shin when you're wading. So all that to say, I'm not a huge fan of trying to figure out a way to put my stocking foot waders into low top, ultralight wading shoes. Now, I get it. You want the best of both worlds. If that's the case, then I would absolutely suggest that mid-range boot. It's the kind of thing where I hike in those all the time. If I am going to be encountering some terrain that's a little bit more rocky, that I'm going to have a need for a little bit more sure-footedness than I get with that low-top kayaking shoe, then I will absolutely walk somewhere with those lightweight wading boots on my back, or with them on my feet even. It's one of those things where a lot of times I will walk in with them on my back. I'll have some hiking shoes on or some running shoes on, and then after fishing with my wading boots on, I just end up wearing them back. It's not that inconvenient, not that bad. As for riding a bike, I don't know if I can give you advice with that, Jesse, but I'm a big fan of finding the right tool for the job and really finding something that's the most versatile first, and then as you add things or as more means are available to you, that's when you go ahead and add on that second option. So it sounds like I would say for most people, go for that kind of lightweight wading boot. Unless you're going to be fishing for steelhead all the time, unless you're going to be fishing on rivers where you're going to be standing in one place and you want that support because you're going to be standing still, or you're fishing on incredibly uneven surfaces, and so you're going to be like leaning into your feet quite a bit, then I would say get that mid-range boot that's very, very light, still offers good ankle support and good toe protection, and then based upon what you do kind of second most or what you kind of want to do, then either go up or go down. So hopefully that's helpful. Go check out that video if you haven't watched it on YouTube. I'd like to be adding some more videos. That seems like just a good idea in the coming weeks and months. So we'll see if that happens, if you'll see more things on my YouTube channel. People are subscribing, which is great. I'm not in it for monetizing or anything like that, but hopefully I can put some more content on there for all the folks that are subscribing. The second question that I got comes from an email from Bob. Bob has a really good question. Bob says, "Hello, I discovered you several months ago and have become a regular listener/reader of yours. I look forward to your podcasts and articles. I have a question for you, and I'm interested in your thoughts, and not requesting a podcast or article on the subject, although here we are, I guess, though I have searched around your site seeking an answer. What do you do with your old flies? Those flies that were tied or purchased for that one piece of water that you will likely not return to, and if you do, you would tie a new fly or purchase more. of those flies that might be just a little too beat up but don't look too bad to others. I recently reorganized my fly boxes and have a collection of odd and end flies that I just can't throw them away. I'm going to establish a fly berry at one of my favorite places, and we'll put a few there. I do not have children, don't have friends and kids that fish, so I can't send them there. Would you be willing to send a few ideas my way? Thank you for being a regular companion on my way to work and guilty pleasure while at work. Bob. Well, I'm happy to do that, Bob, and I'm happy to do that, Bob's boss, if you happen to catch him listening to this episode. So I actually responded to Bob when he sent that email and gave him this piece of advice, but I've got some more to add to it. What I do is I have a big Plano box. I have lots of big Plano boxes. Like these are the ones that are maybe like 14 inches by 10 inches or something like that with all the little compartments in them. And what I do when a fly is like an odd fly that I'm just, it doesn't fit anywhere. It doesn't seem like it has a real good spot. Maybe it is a little bit chewed up. Maybe I tied it and I'm thinking it's looking ugly. Instead of throwing it away right away, I put it in this box. I kind of organize things by color, by dry fly, by streamer, by nymph, and I just kind of keep them there. And every once in a while, I look in that box and I see something that, oh, that might be useful, or that's something that I can put in my kids' fly box. But that's where things are generally stored. I've got some really awful looking flies in there, but you know what? It doesn't take up any more space. It's a couple of big fly boxes that are there that now I have something where if maybe a friend's kid did get into fly fishing, or a friend got into fly fishing, and say, hey, these are all kind of trashy, but don't worry about losing them. They look a little bit beat up, or they're really random. Definitely use them to your heart's content. So that's one thing that I do. The second thing I do that I also suggest is a lot of my random trout flies. So I go to a stream and they've got some bizarre bug that everybody raves about, and I get home thinking, I'm never going to cast this for any of my trout. What I end up doing is putting it in my warm water box. So I've got a panfish box of dry flies and like nymphs, and then a panfish box of just random weird bugs. And more often than not, those are the flies that end up working really, really well. So that is probably the most practical way to use your odd and end flies. But then I do want to reinforce Bob's own idea, which is establishing a flybrary. So go to flybrary.com, I believe, or just Google Flybrary, Flybrary, and it is an awesome program. You're going to see them all over the country. If you follow them on Instagram, you see that they put these fly patches up, or actually, you put these fly patches up. They send them to you, and you put them fly patches up, or you create them, and you let them know that you created one and where it is. And on popular rivers and ponds and boat docks and gas station pumps, all over the country, there are these community kind of give a fly, take a fly initiatives. I did a write-up on it for one of its anniversaries. I can't remember if it's 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. It's on the website. If you put Flybrary into Casting Across the search engine, it'll come up there. And I bet that that will pop up on Google. If you put Casting Across and Flybrary, it'll probably be the first thing that pops up. But that is a great thing to do with your flies that aren't terrible. You know, this is probably better for your odd and end flies, or maybe a fly that you just don't like, you don't have confidence in. Get rid of it. There's no use in cluttering up your box. If you could fit maybe like 3 more clousers that you have confidence in and take out 1 or 2 flies that you don't like, then that is well worth it. And somebody else might have a great need for it. And at the end of the day, if you bought it, maybe it's $4, and if you tied it, it's pennies. So definitely throw it up on a flybrary, throw it in a warm water fly box, throw it in a storage box that you can push out of the way and make room in your fly box. Because I'll have that sometimes where my fly boxes get cluttered and I end up missing things, and then I end up going out and buying it if it's something I don't like tying, or tying more of them if I think that I don't have any. And it's not that having more flies than you need is bad, but if you could use your time, energy, and effort on something else because you actually have those flies in your box, then that's a better use of your time, energy, and effort. Similarly, if you're on the water and you can't find a fly because your fly box is too cluttered, then this is something that you probably should have done a long time ago. But, that's one of your great kind of off-season activities, is to pull everything out of the boxes, take a look at stuff, make sure your hooks are in good order, make sure your hook points are sharp, and if not, give them a good filing. trim any of the little monofilament or fluorocarbon tags off of the hook eyes, check to see if any of the thread on the heads of the flies is coming undone, and then just put them into piles and fix them as needed and then put them back in. And if anything is looking a little bit rough or weird, then just do one of the 3 things that I suggested. So thanks again, Bob. That was a great question. I don't know if that's a great answer or not, but I think the fly berry is probably your best answer, so you answered that yourself. Third email. Email? That's what some people say, like me. Email. This comes from Matt. So he says, "Good morning, Matthew. I just wanted to write in because I figured you might find this humorous. I went out to do some fly fishing this morning, and as usual, I do my podcast listening on the road. I couldn't help but laugh at the fact that I was driving to Mossy Creek with a Bojangles bag in the seat next to me and a cup of their coffee in the cup holder while I was listening to you discuss your Spring Creek adventures, which sounded an awful lot like you were fishing Mossy. Anyway, great podcast, and I hope your time back in Virginia has been good. My family is coming, and we're going to go fishing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." But Matt. So, yes, I was fishing Mossy Creek, and I wrote about Mossy Creek and talked about Mossy Creek a couple weeks ago when I was in Virginia. Great creek, just absolutely gorgeous. And it's one of those places where it's not spot burning. My goodness. It's one of, if not the most popular stream. Between Mossy and Rapidan, and a couple of their Whiteout Canyon and things like that in Virginia. That's where people go to fish. There's lots of small streams that I would feel bad about talking about. But if you say I went and fished Mossy Creek, just like I went and fished the South Fork of the Shenandoah, it's not that big of a deal. People are going to go there, and the fish aren't going to be in any sort of peril because a couple more anglers are fishing there, and certainly not because I'm spoiling it for anybody. But the purpose of sharing this email from Matt is just the cool kind of small fly fishing world that we live in. It really is a small world. There are so many anglers out there, and the vast majority of us fish on the same water. Now, you might have your private stream honey hole, or you might have the spot that you have scouted and you are very confident that you're the only one that fishes there. Your footprints are the only footprints that you see on a stream. I've got a stream like that, and I love that. But I know that is the anomaly. In the grand scheme of the rivers I fish, the places on the coast that I fish, a lot of other people fish those places, and more often than not, as I'm having conversations with people, we end up saying, "Oh, you fished here? Oh, by this rock? Oh, at this time of day? That's my favorite place to fish there too." And for a while, especially when I was younger, that made me almost like anxious, like, "Oh, they're going to catch my fish, they're going to catch my trout, they're going to catch my bass." And I've kind of grown out of that, partially because I'm not on the water enough to really be possessive about any sort of fish, and secondly, whether you know it or not, people are fishing in your spots. And so if you go and you feel like you've had that day to yourself, and you're not going to go back for a month, and you go back a month later and you have a great time, just because you weren't there watching other people fish didn't mean that other people weren't fishing. You get what I'm saying? So I think it's something to be embraced, something that can build community. I love getting feedback like what Matt just sent me from folks who are sharing their experience of fishing on the Letort in Pennsylvania, their experiences of fishing up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, of fishing the Massachusetts coast, fishing in Rocky Mountain National Park, in the Driftless in Wisconsin, in the TVA rivers down in Arkansas, all these places that I have fished, that I've talked about on the podcast, that I've talked about on the website. It's really neat to have those shared experiences and to be able to have kind of a offshoot of that fly shop, little trout town pub conversation that you would normally have, but do it online or do it at a trade show or do it when you run into somebody at a fly fishing event. So embrace it. Obviously, there's a lot of negative sides to a lot of people fishing the same water, but if you're talking about like-minded anglers, there's actually, I believe, more power in that, because the more like-minded anglers that are on the water, one, there's more eyes on the water, more people who are going to be able to call out nonsense and call out mess and be able to be vigilant about taking care of the resource and being good stewards. But also, it creates a sense of ownership among a group of people, and so they're going to take care of that water. They know that it's not just for them. No one's going to abuse a fish because they think, oh, this is just mine, I can do whatever I want with it. Knowing that other people are going to be falling behind you is going to maybe not change what you do, but give you appreciation for what you are doing. So I know that wasn't like a fishing tip, but maybe it can help you with your perspective on where you're fishing and who you're fishing with. And you're not rivals. Maybe you have that one guy who low holes you or beats you to your spot every time or something like that. I've had those experiences where it seems like the same person is always kind of where I want to be, but they probably think that way about you. So why not become allies as opposed to angling enemies? That's worth an article or something like that in the future, I think. But anyway, thank you for those emails. I got plenty more. I got lots more stuff. I got a kind of a bittersweet email from a friend in the fly fishing industry who's leaving, and I do wish him the best. If you are listening, I've reached out to you, and that's happened a lot. I've been doing this for about 6 years now within the casting across context. Did it plenty of years before that with some retail sales and some other stuff. So there's a lot of people that come and go and change, and there's some really, truly genuine good people who are doing this for the right reasons. And so for all of the weirdness and the flack the meme accounts put out there, there's so many good people in fly fishing. Social media is not the barometer of what the fly fishing industry and the fly fishing culture is. So I'm all about it. That's part of the reason why I do what I do. If you have any questions, comments, or again, accusations about what I write or what I say, feel free to reach out, Matthew@castingacross.com, or chirp me through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or any other social media that I'm on. That's really about it. But okay, this week on castingacross.com, there was 2 articles. The first one is called Throwback Gear Review, the Scott Alpha. So Scott is one of those fly rod companies that just kind of consistently does good stuff and always ends up on the top of people's lists of quality fly rods, but just isn't super showy. But great people, talking about what I was just talking about before. Every trade show, every interaction I've had with the folks at Scott has been like super chill and incredibly pleasant. And my very first saltwater fly rod was the Scott Alpha Series, a 9-foot 8-weight, and it is still my go-to smallmouth bass rod and one of the rods that I throw most frequently, even in the surf here in New England. Even though it's kind of on the slower side of medium fast for a floating fly line and a smaller fly, but a weighted fly, it's one of my favorite rods to throw into the surf for stripers. So I talk a little bit about getting the rod and my 20 plus years of fishing with it. They don't make any of the Alpha Series anymore. I'm not even sure what the spiritual successor to the rod is in their lineup right now, but the rod went through 4 revisions before it was discontinued into like 2017, I think. But I still have mine, fish mine, love mine. It's a great rod, and writing this has made me like want to look at Scott more. So I'll be checking that out, and you should as well. But that article again is called Throwback Gear Review, Scott Alpha Series. And then on Wednesday, the article is called Why I Got Skunked, a Handy Excuse Guide. Something I don't do enough is write fly fishing humor. This isn't particularly funny. You're not going to be rolling around laughing, but it might make you smile because using 8 alliterative categories, all the letter P, I write about some of the excuses people make for not catching fish. And some of them may hit close to home, but trust me, plenty of them are things that I have said on my own. So definitely give that one a read and find the humor in it. This week's recommendation on the podcast is something that I mentioned back in a gift guide a couple of months ago. I think it was for Father's Day, but I wanted to kind of hone in a little bit more particularly for this podcast. So by and large, looking at the demographics of the folks that listen to the podcast and read the website, you are trout anglers. Now, if you're a panfish person or a bass person or a saltwater person, you're not left out. It's just you are in the minority, relatively speaking. So what I wanted to share in this recommendation this week are 2 field kits from Redington. So I think Redington makes great products, not pretentious stuff at all, just hard-working, great gear at a reasonable price. So they came out with field kits at the beginning of this year. Now, they've always made kind of prepackaged combos, things that come in a cardboard box with everything that you need in it. Most fly fishing companies do. But if you've noticed, as you go into fly shops and maybe looked online, virtually every company does this, and they might have one that's in a kind of mid-range price point. So the field kits come in a number of different configurations, but 2 of them are the coastal cold water and the tropical saltwater. And the reason why I'm pointing this out in this episode for the recommendation is if you are a trout angler and you value good gear and you want to make that jump to fishing for saltwater, so if you're up by me and you live in maybe New England or maybe down in the mid-Atlantic and you want to fish for stripers, but you don't want to spend $1,000, which is very easy to do on a rod and reel, let alone line, or maybe if you live down like the Carolinas or Virginia and you want to go out and fish for things like redfish and you're in the same boat, for $349.99, you can get a great rod. They are a rod that is unique just for these field kits. And then the reel, which is the Behemoth, which is an awesome solid reel. Now, given you use it in the saltwater, you're going to have to take care of it, but I do that regardless of the reel that I'm using. And then some real top of the line, high quality reel line, which if you've heard me talk before, line is the most important thing for good long casts. A good line will make a good rod great. And so that's what you get here. I fish with the coastal cold water one, the 9-weight, and then the 8-weight is the tropical saltwater one. So you can kind of go back and forth and look at those. But I'll put a link to the field kits from Redington on the show notes of this podcast page on castingacross.com. But definitely check them out. Again, if you know good gear and you want something that is not super entry level, but something that will definitely last you and it'll be able to stay in your arsenal as you continue to fish this, or if it's something you just do a few times a year but you don't want to get something chintzy, definitely check out the Redington field kits. They are nothing but quality. I've really enjoyed using the coastal cold water field kit for the last few months. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing podcast. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast app and rate the podcast on iTunes. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.
In Wild Country, rules were not created by man. Don't miss Wild Country, Wednesdays from 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Presented by Primos. Speak the language. Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment. A life that has the stories to back it. A life to be proud of. It's a Winchester life.
Yeah, baby. 6'8" Western. Oh, mule deer, baby, right there.
Tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.